$28.9 billion exposed. DEA and U.S. Marshals storm of my hour, 529 arrested in a coordinated.
At 3:47 a.m., the city of Miami exhaled in its sleep. The Atlantic sat black and motionless beyond the shoreline. Biscayne Bay reflected nothing but amber streetlight. The air was thick, humid, salt-soaked, the kind of stillness that settles over a city hours before anyone honest is awake. On the 34th floor of the Meridian Axis Tower on Brickell Avenue, the lights were still on. They almost always were. The building itself was magnificent, 62 stories of mirrored glass and reinforced concrete, home to law firms, private equity consultants, and a rotating cast of international wealth management offices. Concierge staff worked around the clock. Security cameras blanketed every corridor. The lobby smelled of imported marble and cool air. To anyone passing on the street below, this was the architecture of success, a monument to legitimate enterprise. But to federal investigators from the Drug Enforcement Administration and the United States Marshal Service, this tower was not a symbol of prosperity. This was the operational nerve center of the most sophisticated narcotics distribution empire ever constructed on American soil. His name was Alejandro Vega-Rios. Publicly, he was everything Miami aspired to be: a self-made financier, a benefactor of 3 children's hospitals, a fixture at charity galas and municipal fundraisers. His LinkedIn profile listed him as chief executive of Coastal Meridian Capital Group. His photograph had appeared in the Miami Herald's annual Power 100 issue not once, but for consecutive years. To his neighbors in Coral Gables, he was the man who sent wine at Christmas and organized neighborhood hurricane preparedness drives. To city commissioners, he was a reliable donor and a thoughtful voice on economic development. To the DEA's Miami Field Division, Alejandro Vega-Rios was the architect of a criminal infrastructure that stretched from the coca fields of Narino, Colombia, through Venezuelan maritime corridors, into a 47-state distribution network operating beneath a financial shell structure so complex it had taken 31 months of forensic accounting just to identify its skeleton. The investigation began not with a tip, but with a number. In the spring of 2022, DEA financial analysts running routine transaction monitoring flagged a cascading pattern of structured wire transfers originating from 17 shell companies registered in Panama, Cyprus, and the Cayman Islands, all funneling into 3 Florida-based holding firms. The amounts were precise, almost surgically so, always just below federal reporting thresholds, always routed through legitimate intermediary banks. Investigators would later describe it as watching someone breathe, rhythmic, controlled, designed to appear entirely natural. But underneath that rhythm was a circulation system moving billions of dollars in narcotics proceeds through the American financial bloodstream. By late 2022, the DEA had partnered with the Marshal Service, Homeland Security Investigations, and the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. A joint task force, designated Operation Iron Meridian, was quietly assembled. 47 agents, 6 forensic accountants, 3 federal prosecutors from the Southern District of Florida. Encrypted communications between Vega-Rios and his distribution commanders revealed that the Meridian Axis Tower wasn't simply where he worked. It was where the empire breathed. The 34th floor housed a private suite registered to a shell entity called Coastal Meridian Advisors LLC. On paper, it was a risk management consultancy. In practice, it was a real-time coordination hub processing cocaine, fentanyl, and synthetic opioid logistics across 6 time zones. Surveillance confirmed that couriers entered and exited through a private elevator, accessible only with biometric credentials. Encrypted satellite phones move in and out inside briefcases. Financial transfers were authorized from terminals inside that suite that investigators eventually confirmed processed over $400 million in a single 7-day window. This wasn't just drug trafficking. It was a fully operational criminal enterprise masquerading as a Fortune 500 company. By the time a grand jury signed off on the sealed indictment carrying 529 named defendants across 11 states and 4 countries, federal agents understood the risk. Vega-Rios had sources inside the Miami-Dade Police Department. He had informants watching the federal courthouse. The window to move was narrow, and it would not stay open long. At 3:47 a.m., the order went out. 14 tactical units, synchronized, deployed across Brickell Avenue with precision that had been rehearsed in a warehouse in Hialeah for 9 consecutive days. Black SUVs sealed the block. A federal helicopter, running dark, no lights, held a position 800 feet above the tower roof. U.S. Marshals in full tactical gear established a perimeter around the buildings for access points within 90 seconds of initial deployment. The lobby was secured before a single elevator moved. Command went to the 34th floor. Stairwells, sealed. Service entrances, covered. The private biometric elevator was overridden using credentials obtained through a court-authorized breach protocol 40 minutes prior. The doors opened. Agents moved in. Fast. Disciplined. 16 personnel. Flashbang deployment in the East Corridor. The concussive cracks split the silence. Shouting in English and Spanish. Doors came off their frames. 3 armed individuals inside the suite went to the floor in under 4 seconds. No shots fired. No resistance survived longer than that. The first layer was immediate. 244 kilograms of cocaine. Compressed. Vacuum sealed. Stacked in a storage room behind a false drywall panel that appeared on every architectural blueprint on file with Miami-Dade's building department to be a structural support column. $12 million in physical currency, bundled and labeled in denominations sorted by destination city. 14 encrypted satellite devices. A weapons cache, 9 semi-automatic rifles, 6 handguns, 2 suppressed submachine guns, and enough ammunition to sustain an engagement that nobody in that room wanted to imagine. But that wasn't what stopped agents cold. Behind a second concealed panel, this one accessed through a biometric reader disguised as a thermostat panel. A narrow corridor led to a secondary suite that did not appear on any floor plan. Not the building's original blueprints. Not the renovation permits filed in 2019. Not the fire marshal's inspection records from 2023. This room did not officially exist. Inside it, agents found a server infrastructure, 22 rack-mounted units, running encrypted distribution software that tracked narcotic shipments across the continental United States in real time. Active, still running, coordinating 17 simultaneous deliveries at the moment of breach. Logistics for 3.4 metric tons of fentanyl-laced pressed pills moving through 7 cities that very morning. Investigators would later realize they were looking at something more devastating than a stash house. They were standing inside the brain of the operation. Then came the third discovery. In an interior room sealed with a commercial-grade vault door, the kind used in bank branches, agents found documentation. Not drugs, not weapons, financial architecture. 47 file cabinets containing identity records, account credentials, and compromised personal information belonging to 1,847 individuals across federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. Officers, analysts, a sitting federal magistrate, 3 DEA field supervisors. The network had not merely evaded law enforcement, it had embedded itself inside it. The silence in that room, according to one agent's testimony filed in subsequent federal proceedings, was absolute. Nobody spoke. The cold air from the server room rolled through the vault door. Someone said quietly that they needed to call Washington. Alejandro Vegarios was found in the master suite of the private residence on the 61st floor, a space that appeared on building records as an unoccupied investment property. He was seated at a glass desk, dressed, calm. His encrypted phone was already wiped. He looked at the agents in the doorway and said 2 words, "My lawyer." He was in handcuffs within seconds. The Meridian Axis Tower was only the beginning. At 4:02 a.m., 15 minutes after the primary breach, a new order went out across 11 states, coordinated through a federal command center in Quantico. 231 simultaneous operations. Every one of them sealed from outside communication until the moment of execution. In Broward County, agents breached a strip mall tax preparation office that had been routing cartel proceeds through 4,000 false tax filings annually, 31 arrested, $47 million in financial instruments seized. In Atlanta, a warehouse registered as a pharmaceutical distribution company contained 1.8 metric tons of fentanyl analogs. Suspects attempted to trigger a pre-programmed data wipe as agents entered. The attempt failed. In Houston, a residential compound surrounded by 12-foot privacy walls concealed an underground tunnel system extending 340 feet toward a neighboring property. 6 armed guards surrendered without incident. In Chicago, a currency exchange with 3 brick-and-mortar locations was found to have processed $890 million in narcotics money over a 4-year period. Its owner, a naturalized citizen with no prior criminal record, was indicted on 47 federal counts. In Los Angeles, a licensed private aviation company used to transport cash and product between distribution hubs was grounded. 2 aircraft mid-flight were rerouted by Federal Air Traffic Control Authority and met on the tarmac by waiting agents. By 7:30 a.m., the numbers climbing out of field reports were staggering. By 9:15 a.m., the network's encrypted communication infrastructure had collapsed entirely. 47 encrypted channels went dark in a 30-minute window as administrators were arrested simultaneously across time zones. By 11 a.m., badge revocations had been initiated for 9 law enforcement personnel identified in the vault documents. Federal internal affairs moved with the same synchronized precision that had characterized every phase of Operation Iron Meridian. Nobody inside the network had time to run. Nobody had time to warn anyone. The architecture vagarios had spent nearly a decade building disintegrated in the space of a single morning. When the final accounting was compiled, Operation Iron Meridian produced results that the Department of Justice described in its official press release as without precedent in the history of American federal law enforcement. 529 individuals arrested across 11 states, 4 countries, and 2 U.S. territories. $28.9 billion in total assets seized or frozen, including real estate, financial accounts, cryptocurrency wallets, and physical currency. 6.7 metric tons of cocaine, fentanyl, and synthetic opioids removed from the distribution chain. 47 firearms and 3 illegal weapons caches seized. 1,847 compromised law enforcement identities recovered and referred for federal review. 9 law enforcement personnel suspended pending federal investigation. 231 simultaneous operations executed across domestic and international jurisdictions. By evening, Alejandro Vagarios sat in a federal holding cell at the Federal Detention Center in Miami. No glass desk, no encrypted phone, no charity galas, no power rankings, no marble lobby beneath his feet. Just a concrete room, fluorescent light, and the weight of 529 federal indictments bearing his name at the top. The community he had cultivated, the hospitals he had funded, the commissioners he had advised, the neighbors he had charmed, processed the revelation in stunned silence. City officials ordered an independent audit of every municipal contract connected to Coastal Meridian Capital Group. The Miami Herald ran a 40-page investigative follow-up. 3 federal agencies announced internal reviews of their vetting procedures. The Southern District of Florida assigned a dedicated task force to investigate the compromised personnel files recovered from the vault. Operation Iron Meridian proved something America is slow to confront and faster to forget, that the most dangerous criminal empires are not the ones that hide in the shadows. They are the ones that learn to stand in the light. They donate to hospitals. They attend the right dinners. They speak at civic forums and contribute to campaigns and cultivate the appearance of legitimacy so completely that by the time anyone looks closely, they have already made themselves indispensable. Power, this operation demonstrated with clinical precision, is not immunity. Trust, deployed as a weapon, is one of the most lethal instruments in existence. The 529 individuals in federal custody tonight represent a network of exploitation built on that premise, on the assumption that no one would ever look hard enough, long enough, or deep enough. The lights in the Meridian Access Tower are off tonight. The server rooms are silent. The vault is empty. The scars on every institution touched by this network will take years to fully measure. But tonight, for the first time in 31 months of painstaking, dangerous, unglamorous federal work, the architects of that empire answer to something they could not buy, could not compromise, and could not charm their way past: justice.